feel like a supervillain in like a throne. Other people look normal in gaming chairs. They're ridiculous. Hello lovely people, my name is Emma. Welcome back to my channel, welcome if you are new here. This is a good opportunity to get to know me. We're gonna do a little Q&A today. Recently, somehow, we hit 25,000 subscribers, which is sort of mad. It's an unexpected and exciting twist. I thought it'd be fun to celebrate with a little Q&A, so I posted on Twitter and Instagram and Patreon asking for any questions that people had that they wanted to ask. I'm going to prioritise the Patreon ones and just get through as many as I can and see how time goes. It'll be fun. It's gonna be great. Just have a little sip of coffee. Alright, let's get started. First of all, questions from Patreon. Let's start with a really lovely question from Lizzy Gayle. What's an accomplishment you're really proud of? It's actually a really hard question to answer. I feel like I've not done anything. I think in recent times, probably be delivering His Dark Materials Series 2. We moved to working from home like halfway through the show, so it was totally crazy. We had to get used to not only working on a show and delivering that from home for like the first time ever, but all of the life and personal stuff that comes along with that and everything that was going on at the start of the pandemic. And we ended up making a thing and it looked amazing. Like it was a really beautiful show. The animals looked gorgeous and we got a couple of awards for the VFX, so that was pretty cool, and I'm pretty proud of that one. Lizzy also asks, if you were a bender in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender, which element would you bend? Confession, I've never seen any Avatar, but going off of my instinctive choices in Pokemon, I tend to favour a water type. I used to live by the beach, I love swimming, I'm gonna say water, I think. Mr. Creosote asked, which dystopia would you prefer to live in? 1984, Brave New World, or Soylent Green? What work would you like to do in each? I thought this was such a cool question, but really hard to answer. Of the three, I think Soylent Green is my fave. Definitely one of my favourite movies. 1984 I love. Brave New World is great, but of the three, probably my least favourite. That's just because these are three great contenders. In terms of which one would I prefer to live in, I think 1984's got to go at the bottom of the list. At least Brave New World and Soylent Green, while they are horrible dystopian societies, you can still reject privately the society that you live in. In 1984, the whole conundrum, I guess, is that you can't even have those private thoughts to yourself without risking losing your humanity, losing who you are. So 1984 has to go. And I don't know what I would... In 1984, I guess I would just do some sort of... I would do some sort of office work. Or maybe I would Actually, I think potentially in all of them, as an editor, I might end up working on propaganda. I wouldn't like that. But maybe there's a way I could slip in some kind of subliminal messages. So that potentially could be something kind of cool that I could do. I think I might have to go with Brave New World, just because Soylent Green is very much conform or starve, and the women who work as, well, the women who are slaves in Soylent Green are literally regarded as furniture, which don't like that. Brave New World, obviously being exiled is terrible. At least you can escape the dystopian society that is, making the story. So Brave New World for me, please. Connla says, why goddamn me every episode? The true answer for this is that he said that I could. On my Patreon, I say that if you want to be known by any other name, just message me and let me know so I can get your preferred name onto credits and things. Connla came to me and was like, oh, so I can choose a really stupid nickname and you'll have to say it, right? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, you can damn me in return if you like. And the reason I keep doing it is because A, it's funny, and B, the time that I forgot, Connla was a bit sad. Now it's just force of habit. Connla also asked, why are you so small, Emma? Are you pocket-sized for ease of transportation? The answer is yes. That is why. You can pack me into a rolly suitcase and I'm very easy to carry around. Quim said, I'd love for you to elaborate your thoughts on the men can't be feminists trope. What would be a good name for men who actively oppose patriarchy if not feminist? I think feminist is totally fine. I've pointed out a number of times that my boyfriend is a feminist, he identifies as a feminist. I've also said before, I think that it's fine if you have your personal reasons not to choose that particular language, you'd prefer to identify yourself just as, say, a humanist. As long as you stand for equality and against discrimination, I really don't care what the word you use is. The idea that men can't be feminists, it's fortunately not something that I've really come across. I think that's just silly. Having allies in the majority group, the group that has the privilege, is super useful. A lot of sexist men won't listen to women on the topic because they've got these preconceived notions of women, but if male allies can reach them and change their minds, then that's extremely valuable. This trope of men can't be feminists is crazy. It doesn't matter who you are, what your gender is, what term you use, as long as you stand against discrimination, just carry on. Fulcrum asked, do you think dating has evolved for the better or for the worse? In your experience, do you think online dating is worth the trouble? What made or broke the chances of you wanting to spend time with someone over a text conversation, besides the always send nudes? In terms of dating in general, having evolved for the better or worse, I think better, just because people are more open to talking about their needs, their wants. We're more aware of our own mental health, which is something that can take a big strain on a relationship. The less discrimination we have against genders and sexualities and things makes it easier and easier for different people to date. When I was a teen versus being in my early 20s, it was harder for me as a queer person being able to find dating sites or apps that allowed for that and supported me in that kind of queer space. Now there are a lot more options, which I think is better. Do you think online dating is worth the trouble? I have mixed feelings. It's difficult because I do think that the kind of gamification of dating apps and the kind of the swiping, I think there are definitely negative impacts there that we can't really ignore. The same with seeing photos of a person before anything else. A lot of people just don't photograph so well as they look. You know what I mean? Like, some of the time when I was using dating apps, I'd be like, I think this person might be kind of cute, and then I'd see them in real life and find them way more attractive, and that's just how I think photos work sometimes. I think that can be something that maybe stands in the way of you meeting people. It's difficult. And I know a lot of people, I have friends who have met their partner on a dating app and feel amazingly lucky and have a great relationship. And I know people who have really struggled because of dating apps, especially people who want to date women because generally there tend to be a lot more men on dating apps. So if you're, say, a man trying to date a woman, it can be a lot harder just because the stats are stacked against you, and then that can be kind of damaging to your self-esteem, even though there's nothing wrong with you as a person. It's just, I don't know, it's difficult. I'd be interested to hear everybody else's opinion. If you could put down in the comments what you think about dating in general and online dating. My feeling is like, yeah, dating in general, much better as we become more open and accepting people. Online dating can be really beneficial, definitely has its drawbacks. Eric says, is it hard making friends with similar geeky interests? Where I live, it's beer, party, and sports. Oh, that's rough. I feel that. It kind of depends. It's really easy for me because I work in VFX. Like, half the people I meet are super geeky, and there's geeky events. It's not super easy. When I was at uni, I joined specifically like socials themed around geeky stuff. So like clubs and groups and things is always a good idea. It depends, like I said, it does depend where you live. It can be really tricky. But the thing is, like, the geeks are out there. It's much easier to find people who are into like beer and sports because beer and sports is everywhere, whereas I feel like the geeks are sort of hidden around, but they are out there. You just have to find them. Good Kelly asks, what's your favourite animal? Frog. Hamel15 says, how did you become interested in YouTube video creation? Was it during college or high school? Yeah, pretty much was. I was really into sketch comedy on YouTube in like school and college. Mostly British sketch comedy, people like Tom Scar and Bing and that whole crowd. I took media studies at sixth form as my fourth extra subject to drop because I thought I was going to do computer science before I realised that actually I had hit a wall with maths and just, I can't. No more will go in and stay in. So media studies became like the one thing that I was studying that I actually really enjoyed and felt like I could excel at. The more I learned, the more sort of feasible and easy it became to record stuff myself. And I just sort of started doing it. I started making vlogs. You can see old vlogs of me on the channel where I'm just like ranting about a book I've read or trying to bake something. Just random stuff. I was always interested in acting as well and took lots of acting classes, and so it was just like kind of a way of combining different interests and sort of honing them. There's never really been a purpose beyond I find it fun, and skills that I benefit from and am interested in are like really helped develop by making YouTube videos. Jeffrey Universe asked, what's your favourite Pokemon? It's my buddy Quagsire, of course. He is an absolute bud. I just finally got the DLC when I got to the point where I could walk around with my Pokemon and I had like full-sized Quagsire stood next to me. Oh my god, so happy. iCave Dave says, did you have religion as a part of your childhood and move away, or always have a skeptical outlook and attitude to pseudoscience? It's difficult for me to explain, partly because I had kind of a weird childhood with regards to beliefs. But in general terms, I wasn't particularly religious. My mum brought me up secular. I was always quite a skeptical kid, but when I was young and we had Church of England schools, we had the vicar come in, it was all presented as fact, so I didn't really have any reason to question specifically Church of England Christianity until I was a little bit older. At some point quite early on I moved away from that and became, a bit of a skeptic. I definitely got more skeptical as I got older. As a kid, you just kind of hope different things are true. You put your faith in whatever sounds good at the time and then you keep trying it out. And then in my sort of mid-teens I started getting into Hitchens and Dawkins and people like that. Went full skeptic. Catboy Catastrophe said, how do you feel about J.K. Rowling and the rise of TERF rhetoric in the UK? And Cassiopean said, I was wondering what your thoughts are on Harry Potter with regard to Joanne really concerning transphobia and the notion of separating a work of art from its creator. I think those are brilliant questions, and these are things I've been thinking about a lot for like however long it's been. Rising transphobia in the UK, my thoughts are basically just concern. I have a lot of trans friends. It really upsets me. I can't even begin to express how disappointed I was in Rowling when she started to promote this TERF agenda, because at first it was like, okay, this is coming from a place of fear and misunderstanding. Hopefully people can teach her and she'll learn. And then she really doubled down. A couple of things really upset me. I could do an entire video about this, so I'm going to try and keep this as brief as I can. A is that she repeatedly does this thing where she's like, well, my lesbian friend says it's fine. You can't just use queer people like that to prove a point. I've met a lot of turfy lesbians. Unfortunately, there's a lot of them out there. Just because your friend is a lesbian doesn't have anything to do with things you say being transphobic. The other thing was this kind of knee-jerk reaction that I think a lot of people have when they get called out for something like this, which is, I'd never want to hurt people. I'm not trying to hurt people. And like conflating I wouldn't want to hurt people with having actually hurt people. I never intended to hurt anyone. And therefore, I haven't hurt anyone, leave me alone. Whereas I think the right thing to do at that point, obviously, is to be like, oh shit, I've been taught how I've hurt people who've supported me my whole life. I understand now, blah, blah, blah. She uses really bad faith arguments like detransitioning and the safety of women to kind of back up her transphobic stance. I'll put a link in the description to an NBC News feature that has some links in it. And I've actually talked about some of these statistics before, but I'll just really quickly repeat them here because we're already talking about it and I think it's really important. There's been no link found between trans-inclusive policies and bathroom safety. None. It just doesn't exist. It's a fear tactic. I think a lot of the time Rowling in particular conflates fear of men and the actions of men with trans women, which is bizarre. And in terms of detransitioning statistics, I went into this a lot more detail. It was Girl Defined and Nancy Pearcey. My reaction to the Girl Defined podcast, where they had Nancy Pearcey on as a guest, and she is extremely they all are extremely transphobic and bigoted in many ways. I went into this in a lot more detail, so you can go and check that out if you want to hear more. But it's like less than 5% estimated trans people detransition. It's almost always way before any surgery or anything like that happens. These things are really misrepresented and misused to try and push an agenda. Rowling is really guilty of that, so I find that very frustrating. In terms of how we should respond and distancing the art from the artist and what I personally think, this is just for me. I couldn't carry on as before. You know, like I've done videos about Harry Potter, wearing Harry Potter stuff. It's the sort of thing that, you know, I would have maybe had my Hogwarts house in my bio or something. I don't feel comfortable plastering that everywhere now because there is an association with transphobia, and my priority is making sure that my trans friends feel safe and know that any tiny online space I create or real physical space is a safe place for trans people. Now, that doesn't mean that I burned everything to do with Harry Potter. Far from it. I still have, you know, the gifts I've been given and Harry Potter t-shirts that I wear on lazy days, and I don't feel the need to do a big bonfire and burn everything as long as I'm advertising a safe environment and everybody knows that and feels comfortable. The rest is just personal. And that's kind of how I feel in general. And I know I have lots of friends who have grown up with Harry Potter and loved it. I'm kind of that generation and have reacted different ways. I have a friend who wants to know what's being written, but will only buy them secondhand. I also have friends who play Quidditch, but will have nothing to do with anything official in terms of merch or anything. And Quidditch, by the way, is like pretty much the most inclusive sport I think I've ever come across. Basically, I think it's important on a surface level to make it clear that I don't support J.K. Rowling as a person. I don't support her views. I don't support her new TERF fans. And I will always try and provide a safe space. And then after that, it's just personal. Lorna asks, what editing software do you use and why? Here's another one I could go off on an entire video about. I will try and be brief. I use Sony Vegas Pro for YouTube. I actually use Avid Media Composer for my day job. The full version is really expensive. It requires a beefier machine than I have at home to run, and Avid doesn't like a lot of codecs. It doesn't play nicely with the kind of files that I find it easiest to work with. Sony Vegas will run on almost anything. There's like no learning curve. It's really, really easy to get into. If you're just doing quick cutting and simple effects, you can edit super fast in Vegas, but it's still pretty feature rich. Natalie says, show us your desk from your POV. There seems to be lots of interesting knickknacks on it. Okay. There's my audio interface. It's a Behringer because, you know, everybody has a Behringer and they're great. We got the Prince of the Cosmos, we got Grogu, I got this recently. It's a little skull with a spider on the head. Isn't that amazing? This is my COVID jab. Detective Pikachu. That little box has my like little USBs and things in it. This I bought for my tiny room, but it's too big, so it's just living on my desk, but it's a tiny Cinderella video, so that just lives here now. My new dice, because I haven't put them away. Whole stack of Scooby-Doo stickers from Candy Sticks, so I don't know what to do with them yet. Got my Tamagotchi so I can see that he's okay, and he's within reach. Vocal Zone, which I could do with right now, Throat Pastels, and I've got my fake sunlight doodah. And then up here we got my light and my tripod, that's usually where my camera sits. And above there is dangling spooky spook. I'm My Own Toxicity, who is fabulous, by the way, sent me a whole list of questions to basically choose from, so I'm just going to pick a couple. What's the stupidest thing you once believed, but have since been proven wrong about? Okay, here's an especially stupid one that I actually only realised I was being stupid about really recently, like a couple of years ago. I used to think that when it said EST and then a date on a building, I thought that meant estimated. And I was on the bus with my friend one time and I was like, it's weird that they always say estimated and have such a specific year, like estimated, 1971. And then I was like, established. So that's a pretty freaking stupid one. Do you have a comfort show that you shamelessly turn to when you can't think of anything else to watch? Red Dwarf. I cannot count how many times I've watched the series over and over. It makes me so happy, especially if I'm poorly. If I'm like ill and I can't really get out of bed, I stick in a Red Dwarf DVD and just watch it. Love it. Wade says, I'm curious how you're able to browse right-wing content online without getting anxious or sad, and dealing with hostile comments without getting anxious or sad. Personally, I have to be very mindful of how I use the internet. Yeah, me too. The truest answer is sometimes I do get anxious or sad. I've basically just gotten good at monitoring my internet usage, like you say. I very much used to be guilty of like falling into a doom scrolling kind of habit where you're just looking for bad news, like seeking out stuff that's going to make you unhappy. In terms of browsing right-wing content, sometimes I get more frustrated and angry, I guess, browsing that kind of content, but I find that motivating because I want to dissect that sort of thing logically, so that's okay. I can kind of use that as fuel to work. When I start getting more comments, it's a strange thing with YouTube because you suddenly have these things to deal with that you didn't before, like almost overnight it feels like, which is why I always worry when I see like a teenager going viral on YouTube, because there is no support or preparation given for, hey, all these eyes are on you now and people are gonna tell you things they hate about your body and they're gonna make up stuff about you and people telling you to repent or you're gonna burn in hell every day. So at first I was checking comments when they came through because I didn't have very many. Now what I do is I only look once a week. I have a specific day once a week where I look at comments, analytics, things like that, and the rest of the time I just put it to bed. That really works for me. Sometimes it does affect me. Generally, what I've found is learning the difference between constructive and destructive comments has been really helpful for me. When I know that it's purely destructive, it's easier to ignore. The thing I've really picked up on, maybe this is just me, but it tends to be, I'm only really affected by those comments if they pick up on an anxiety I have about myself already. People laugh about my short hair and my glasses and it's water off a duck's back because I know that I have those things. I don't care. I like it. But when somebody picks up on something that I am self-conscious about, that's when I feel bad. And that is a problem internally with me and my perception of myself rather than a commenter's view. One of the other things I've learned is that a lot of the time things like comments on YouTube or I guess other social media, mostly this is for YouTube, a lot of the times people treat it as more of a space to vent. A lot of the time people are just frustrated and they let it out, and it's not like they're actually targeting you, they just want to vent. And so it's about taking it a little bit less personally. I've gotten way better. I still fuck up sometimes. You learn what to take note of, what to ignore. This is going to sound really cheesy. I hold positive comments. If ever somebody says that I made them laugh or that they learned something, I really hold that in my heart. And that makes silly negative comments fly by a lot easier because I have that little memory stored in my head and it warms me up and makes me feel good. The best thing, if you want to look at that sort of news but you find it hard, the best thing to do is just limit your exposure to it. It's definitely a learning process. Hosanna said, can you show us all your plushies and or your favourites? There are so many. I'll just show you a couple of favourites. You'll know I love frogs. These are... these are from Build-A-Bear. This is the spring green frog, and this is Junior, his tiny son. This is my son and my son's son. Don't ever talk to me or my son or my son's son ever again. I used to work for Build-A-Bear a long time ago. I worked for them for a little while and I got obviously a staff discount, and I have a real taste for Build-A-Bear now. This is Detective Pikachu, obviously, as you can tell by his fabulous hat. I legit, I was waiting desperately for this to come out so that I could get it the second it was available. And he's kind of special to me because Detective Pikachu was the first project I ever worked on. My first movie credit. I loved it. Getting to work on a Pokemon movie was an absolute dream come true for me. I pre-ordered the game. The game of Detective Pikachu obviously came first, and I pre-ordered it and got the special copy so I could get stickers and things because I loved it so much. And then they announced the movie, and then I got to work on it, and just having Detective Pikachu around. I mean, there's one on my desk as well, so yeah, big love. I have a lot of Pikachus in general, actually. Fly free! Oh, he fell on the floor. He's probably okay. And this is Wash. What is he? I don't know. All I know is he's shaped like a friend. Your Morning Guru, go subscribe if you're not already subscribed. You probably are. Says, how much you bench? I've never bench pressed in my life. I would guess at 0. Ed says, what's a major film, game, TV series you've been really hyped for and ultimately been unable to stop yourself from going over the ways you would have improved it? The one at the forefront of my mind is Ni no Kuni 2. Because I have talked about that quite a lot. The first Ni no Kuni game was so beautiful, and it was always going to be harder having the second one not have Studio Ghibli behind it, but it's it overcompensated, and they made it a JRPG, and also it's a town builder, and also it's a military strategy game. It's way too much. It's hard to know what order you're supposed to play the game in, what things you're meant to do, if some quests are impossible because you don't have a strong enough military, but that's because you don't understand the town building aspect of it. Ni no Kuni 2. On a related note, Jim Cat says, what is a TV show or movie that you think is overrated? What is a TV show or movie that you think is overrated? I know, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. My boyfriend loves it. I've tried to watch a couple of episodes. I just hated it. I know that the joke is that they're sexist, but they're the main characters and you're supposed to kind of identify with them. You can't help but identify with the lead character, that's the problem, right? But they're all awful. They're making the point that, haha, TV shows are sexist by having almost no women in it and just making sexist jokes, and it's that's not what I want from that's not the satirical take that I want. I want you to take the mick out of sexism by hiring and supporting women please. I just hated it. Don't at me. Okay, I think I have to stop there because my mouth is getting all dry. I need another drink and I'm tired. That was long. Hopefully that wasn't too long and you found some of that interesting. Thank you so much everybody who submitted a question. That was really fun. I just think it's fun to get to know each other a little bit. I'd love to know your answers to the questions. If you could put down below your thoughts on different things that I answered. As always, I would like to give a huge shout out to my giant chickens over on Patreon. Aaron Reese, Amber, Connla, Chicken Maximus Lyons, God damn it, Connla, Fulcrum, GamingRidge, GhostButterfly, Izzy, Jacob Whitleaf, Lizzy Gayle, Lucy Lamprell, Mr. Creosote, and Taxman. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do like it if you did. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Check out my socials down below if you want to do things like ask me questions, and those are the ways. Have a very lovely week, and I will see you really soon.